His suit and tie had thrown her. No one dressed so formally around here, cargo shorts and t-shirts being the norm. She shifted up onto her tiptoes, trying to get a better look. Holy smoking hotness, Batman! No computer nerd has a right to look like that! Cassie barely absorbed the rest of Kevin's introduction, her focus trained on the new guy and the odd tightness in the center of her chest. He wore his dark hair on the short side, a bit longer on top, one lock kind of flopping over his forehead. Wire-rimmed glasses couldn't hide the deep blue of his eyes. Kevin said something to wrap up the introduction, turning things over to the new guy. Drew gave a tight smile and nod to everyone, but total radio silence paired with his intent, assessing gaze greeted everyone's expectant stares. If she'd had a pin to drop, everyone on the floor would have heard it, despite the carpeting. Cassie was usually the one causing uncomfortable silences in the office, and even she knew a brief hello was appropriate at this point. However, Drew didn't appear aware of any weird vibes. He just waited. Finally, Kevin cleared his throat. "Well, nice to have you with us, Drew." Taking that as the end of introductions, the usual low babble of sound resumed as everyone sat down and got back to work. All except Cassie, whose attention remained snagged on Drew. Seriously, what was wrong with her? She couldn't bring herself to peel her gaze away. Then, without warning, he looked her way, pinning her in place with a look that whispered all sorts of naughty things. Or maybe that was her imagination combined with a heavy dose of wishful thinking. Cheese and Krakens. Cassie ducked back into her cube with more haste than grace, her cheeks heating up with the darn blush that, with her peaches and cream skin, she never could escape. She plopped into her chair, which creaked in protest. Of course, she managed to bump her mug of tea in the process, and the brown liquid sloshed over the sides and all over her desk. Ignoring the spilled liquid, which thankfully went nowhere close to her keyboard or papers, she covered her burning cheeks with her hands. Why, oh why, had she stuck her long hair up in a bun with a pencil? She could use the curtain it provided for cover right now. "You did not just get caught panting over the hot new guy," she moaned quietly. Panting? Heck, she'd practically been humping his leg, metaphorically speaking. And he'd caught her in the act. Too bad she hadn't applied her brain to a time machine for her thesis, because she'd definitely go back and erase the last few minutes. Why am I making such a big deal over a better-than-average computer nerd? Maybe she'd blown him up in her mind. Close up and upon more thorough inspection, he'd end up looking like every other guy in the office. Besides, he probably hadn't noticed her anyway. No one noticed the smart girls, right? The clumsy, unpopular girls who never wore the right clothes or said the right things, or had many dates. Shoving away the unproductive memories of adolescence, she straightened her posture. Who the hell cared about some new employee, hot or not? She was a smart, capable woman, damn it. She'd worked her ass off at MIT, earned her PhD early, and dealt with the male chauvinist world of geekdom with a grin and bite-me attitude. She might not be the queen of witty repartee, and her mother might still nitpick, but her perfect grades and results at work did all the talking for her. At 27, she held the position as the only qualitative data analyst for an up-and-coming big data company. She could afford to live alone in a halfway decent apartment in New York City, which was saying a lot. And her breakthrough algorithm had just won the company she loved a huge government contract. Okay, so maybe she had a habit of saying her thoughts out loud and holding conversations in her head, and maybe she still hadn't determined what look worked for her. Talking to herself and wearing comfy, uninspiring clothes were lovable quirks, right? They certainly had nothing to do with her brains or her abilities. Take that, hot new guy. She nodded as if she'd actually proven that point to him, snatched a few tissues from the box on her desk, and wiped up the now sticky brown ring of tea forming around the base of her mug. A low cough, the polite noise of a masculine throat being cleared, sounded behind her, and she froze mid-wipe as the hairs on the back of her neck stood to attention. A sinking feeling started in her chest and dropped straight to the bottom of her stomach. No flipping way. The reflection in her now